Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to the Sidereal Insights Astro update for January 14th, 2020, the very first one of the new year. Welcome, welcome. We're getting a little bit of a late start, twofold. Normally we broadcast on a Monday, and I did reschedule the broadcast for Tuesday today, and then we're a few minutes late getting started. I apologize for that. I've rearranged the room that I broadcast in and just had to do some fine tuning. And I would like to invite you, just because we did have an issue when my last live broadcast for the full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini. Let me know in the comments, please, if you can hear me okay. We had an issue with the sound last time, and I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay. And I'm going to refresh my feed so that I can see your comments and questions as we broadcast live. Thank you so much for joining me. So I don't know about you, but I'm really excited for the new year. I'm excited for some of the shifts and changes that are going on in the month of January. A lot of them brought about by conjunction cycles. And then, of course, we've had our eclipse cycle happening as well. All right, here's our broadcast. I'm going to grab my notes so we can continue. So welcome to Sidereal Insights. So every 2 weeks on the broadcast, what we do is we take a look at the astrology of the current planetary transits across the heavens from a Western sidereal perspective. And so I do use a sidereal zodiac in my work. We're working specifically with the Fagan-Bradley zodiac on these broadcasts. And so if you need to get a copy of your Fagan-Bradley sidereal natal chart, you can do that online. Let me make sure everything's catching up with me. Oh. I have to make sure that I have my keyboard turned on at the start of every broadcast, but there's the online calculator at the website that's free to use. You can just plug in your birth data and it'll give you your sidereal natal chart. We're going to be looking at some specific degrees and some specific signs on the broadcast today. So thank you for joining me. I am Phaedra. I am the astrologer and artist of Mystic Physick Astrology, and so I use Western sidereal astrology in my practice, and really my practice is based around the idea of helping you to reconnect with your soul purpose and remember why you came into the world to begin with. And really with the broadcasts, my aim is to give you guidance on how you can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets to affect your life in a positive way, because if you know transits are coming, you can be a little bit better prepared, and you can hopefully have an easier time navigating them when you know them, when they're coming in advance. Hi, Christina. It's good to see you on the broadcast today. So we're just getting started. I want to thank everyone for joining me. Thank you for watching. If you're catching the replay, I want to invite you to like and share the broadcast. And if you happen to know someone that you think would be interested in what we're going to be talking about today, tag them in the comments or share the broadcast with them if you would. And then I will also invite you, in part because of our scheduling wonkiness this week with rescheduling from Monday to Tuesday, subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's a link for it right there that I just put into the comments. If you click on the notification icon, that little bell icon, you'll get notified every time I upload a video to YouTube. And I encourage you to do that, in part because I always upload these videos to YouTube afterward, but I am not always consistent about emailing y'all to let you know when I'm about to go live. I usually try to let you know the day before, and then I usually follow up and send you a link to the replay, the recorded broadcast afterward. And sometimes I drop the ball in the email department, and I apologize for that. But if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, then you don't ever have to worry about that. You'll get notified when I upload. And like I said, I always upload the broadcasts to YouTube. So welcome. It's January 14th. Today we're going to talk about a little bit about this welcome to Conjunctiontown activity that I was talking about on the last broadcast, and I will drop a link for the December 30th broadcast for you if you missed it, because I do go a little bit more into what these conjunction cycles are really all about. We're going to talk a little bit more about eclipse season and where we're at with regard to eclipse season. We just came through our second eclipse of this 2-cycle eclipse from December of last year and January of this year. And we're going to talk a little bit about some upcoming sign changes that are going to be happening at the end of the month that will be kind of significant for certain listeners. And so I want to invite you, if you did miss the Sidereal Insights Astro update that broadcast on the 30th of December, This is a link in the comments to that broadcast, and I would encourage you to watch the first part where I talk about conjunction cycles, because January is really conjunction heavy, and we've come through most of our conjunctions. We have at least one more coming up between now and the end of the month. But conjunctions are the most powerful planetary aspect experience that we can have. And so it's really significant that we've had so many of them happening in this very narrow window of time as we shift from one year to the next. We're really shifting from the end of cycles into the next cycle in a lot of different ways and in a lot of different areas of life. And for some of us, they're very, very significant cycle shifts. And so January, I talked about in that video a little bit more about how January is a time of transition, very noticeable and notable transition for a lot of us. So be sure and catch that broadcast if you didn't catch it already. But welcome to Sidereal Insights. So we're going to be diving right in and kind of get you up to speed with where we're at with current transits, with current retrograde activity. And for the first time in a long time, we have this brief window where we don't have any retrograde activity because we just had Uranus, who was the last retrograde planet, stationed direct on January 10th, the day that we had our full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini as well. And so that was a really powerful day. We're still kind of under the effect of the energy that took place during the new moon, and you probably still feel it. Uranus stationary points can feel kind of electric. I don't know if you noticed that in the last few days. We have no retrograde activity right now until for the new moon in Capricorn coming up January 24th at 9 degrees. That's going to be the only new moon this year where we're going to be free of retrograde activity. So I'm going to encourage you to use it and use it wisely. Because unlike in past years where we've maybe had 2 or 3 new moons where we could eke out new beginnings and make major, powerfully supported new initiatives, this year we're only going to have the one new moon opportunity. And so plan ahead for that new moon coming up. It's going to be, like I said, in Capricorn. So check out where Capricorn is in your sidereal natal chart. It's going to be at 24 degrees. Look and see if you have planets or points at 24 degrees. Really, of any sign, that could be significant. But plan your major, most ambitious initiation of the year. And join me on the day before, January 23rd. We're going to have our new moon intention setting for that new moon. And it's going to be kind of a big deal because of the significance, of the new moon. So join me for that. But like I was saying, we have all planets currently in direct motion until February 17th. That's when Mercury is going to station retrograde for the very first time of the year. I know it's a brand new year. We're already talking about Mercury retrograde. I know that seems a little whack, but it is what it is. So be prepared, be thinking ahead for the second half of February, how you want to be using this retrograde cycle. Mercury is going to enter the shadow period of that retrograde on the 2nd of February. So just a few more weeks to wrap up things you know you need to get wrapped up before we need to be moving into retrograde appropriate activities. And so this is especially good time to be doing kind of a review and making some shifting and changes if you're a business person. Think about that for our upcoming retrograde. Yeah, it's so weird. Mercury retrograde. I didn't bring my link. I was a little bit late getting started, in part because I wanted to have all my links ready. I don't have a link handy for the Mercury retrograde survival guide. So what I'll do is I'll circle back around after the broadcast and I'll drop it in the comments. And that way, if you don't have it, I've written a blog post that goes into some depth about Mercury retrograde cycles and how you can use them. And then there's a free download that you can get as well that will take you through how you can use a Mercury retrograde cycle depending on which house it's falling in your sidereal natal chart. And where you're going to want to be looking ahead and kind of thinking, well, how do I want to use this, is in the house that Aquarius occupies in your sidereal natal chart. So take a look at your chart, identify which house that is, and maybe kind of give that a little bit of consideration, just like ruminate on it a little bit as we move through the second half of January. And that way you'll kind of have a plan in place as we move into February as well. Okay? Excuse me, sorry about that. A bit of a runny nose today. So eclipses, this is it. This is the December-January eclipse season is here. Kind of a crazy one. The fourth set of eclipses in the Gemini Sagittarius eclipse series that began in July of 2018. It's going to culminate July of 2020. So we have one more eclipse season to yet get through. We had our new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius at Christmas, on Christmas Day, and now we've had our full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini on January 10th, the day, like I was saying earlier, that Uranus stationed direct. And so this is kind of an electric, kind of a shocking quality possibly to this full moon or to events that happened around it. I think if you kind of look around at some of the news cycles, yes, you could say that that is the case, that there's been some kind of shocking events that have caught us off guard. It can also be a time that brings sudden changes, sudden reversals, whether that's a reversal of fortune or whether that's a reversal of direction, trajectory, a change of mind, a sudden change of mind in a completely opposite direction. These are the types of things that a Uranus stationary retrograde, especially something as powerful as a full moon, happens to be an eclipse, that they can bring in this type of an aspect pattern. Okay, so just be aware of that. And have a look at what Uranus might be signifying in your own chart if you notice an event that would be related to his station and the full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini. Okay. So December 2019 and January 2020, I did a broadcast on this as well with the critical dates and degrees that you want to know for this most recent eclipse season. This is a link for that broadcast. I would encourage you, if you haven't watched it or if you want a refresher, watch it again. I do talk about specific dates that you're going to want to keep an eye on how to know if either of these eclipses have affected you personally. So you'll want to have your chart when you sit down and watch that video. But the main reason why I bring it up, we're still just coming out of this second eclipse of this pair from December and January, right? This is just a few days ago. The energy of that eclipse is still very intense, and it can still be triggering events for even the next 3 to 4 days potentially. So it's still very active and intense energy, but eclipses play out over a period of up to 60 days before and after the actual eclipse itself. And so the reason that I leave you a link to this broadcast on the December-January eclipse season is because we still have potentially two more months where we could be feeling the effects of this eclipse cycle, and you may want to be able to make a note what dates to keep an eye on if you're affected by either one. And I go into what those dates are in that broadcast, so please take a look at that if you need to. And then if you just need to learn a little bit about eclipses and what they are and how to navigate them in general, I do have another broadcast called 3 Eclipse Essentials that you need to know. And that's a good one if you need a refresher, if you just want to learn a little bit more about how to navigate eclipses. There's some actions that are recommended at eclipse time, and there's some that we would really recommend against. And so if you're not familiar with that, that could be a good educational opportunity for you, that 3 Eclipse Essentials that you need to know. But let's talk about where we're going from here. What's coming up? Where are we at now? What's coming up? We have the sun currently in Sidereal Sagittarius just until tomorrow, right? So we've had kind of this party going on in Sagittarius with all this planetary transits going on, and where a lot of our conjunctions have been happening, the January conjunctions that we've been talking about. And so we've had kind of this party in Sagittarius, and really, like, party is kind of the energy of Sagittarius in a way, if you want to look at it in those terms, right? So, and I'm not necessarily saying that it's been a fun party, right? So don't mistake me there, because I know that this particular party in Sagittarius, for those who were the early comers affected by Pluto and Saturn especially, it's not necessarily been a fun party, and it's been dragging on for the better part of a year in some cases for some folks who've had to feel this particular set of conjunctions related to our last full moon lunar eclipse, the one in Gemini that we had on the 10th. For those of us who've been so heavily affected by this energy, it's been a really significant change and transformation and shift in life. And where you find yourself right now is very likely a lot different and than where you were a year ago, and also very likely not at all like where you expected to be. So give yourself a pat on the back if you survived that, and just know that all of this is still, this change is still shifting and settling into place as we move forward, not only even over the coming weeks, but over the coming months, potentially up to the coming year. And we'll see, excuse me, I'm bumping the microphone here. We'll see a final bit of the puzzle kind of falling into place at our next eclipse season coming up at mid-year this year. So just be aware, we're still moving through this transition. We're still moving through this change. It's been very powerful, very significant change for those of us who are affected. It's not over, but we are coming out the other side of it. There's light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. So have hope and hold on for that. We have Mars in Scorpio right now. Mars in Scorpio, he entered just before Christmas. I want to say just after Christmas, December 26th, Mars moved into Sidereal Scorpio. He'll be there through February 9th. And so take a look at where you find your Scorpio house in your chart. This can be an area of high activity, and it can be an area where you really need to be focusing on expending some energy. And if that's the case for you, you'll have until February 9th to really take advantage of this extra energy and extra vitality that Mars will provide for you while he's moving through Scorpio. Now, keep in mind, Mars is a traditional ruler of Scorpio. Modern ruler, we consider Pluto, right? But this could be a significant kind of energizing effect for those of you who do have Scorpio Sun or Scorpio Rising. I would encourage you to always consider, even if you primarily use the modern rulers, always consider the traditional rulers when you're looking at your chart or trying to understand how transits can affect you, because the traditional rulerships, excuse me, do still play very relevant roles for our for certain signs where they come into play. And so if you missed my last broadcast, I'm going to encourage you, I'm going to kind of circle back around on this. Go back and watch the one from December 30th, excuse me, at least the portion where I talk about conjunctions and how conjunction cycles affect us. Because right now, the energy of this moment is still heavily influenced by a lot of these major conjunction cycles that we've had. And I spoke more about that in that broadcast. We're still kind of feeling it. And I don't want to not acknowledge that, but I want to kind of turn our focus to what's coming up, because there's some things that we really need to prepare for. But like I said, if you need to revisit that broadcast, or if you didn't watch it, be sure to catch it, at least that portion where I talk about these conjunction cycles. We've got Venus in Aquarius right now. Venus has been in Aquarius since January 9th. And this is not a super long transit. She's usually here about 3.5 weeks or so. So she'll be leaving probably shortly after we have Mercury leaving for Aquarius at the end of the month. We do have, excuse me, I'm going to scroll ahead and skip past recap of some of the stuff that we've just been through that was so significant over the 10th and the 12th. We had some major transits, like I was saying, and I don't want to downplay them. Even over the 13th, when we had the Sun conjoining Saturn and Pluto, that was a significant day, and that was just yesterday. But looking ahead, we're still kind of shaking off the Saturn-Pluto energy. And keep in mind that this Saturn-Pluto energy will be with us for some time. Saturn-Pluto conjunction cycles are long-term conjunction cycles, and so we'll feel effects from the changes that this conjunction cycle brought for at least the next 12 to 18 months. But the important thing to keep in mind as you consider that is that we've also had the Sun and Mercury conjoining those exact same degrees, those exact same planets over a very short span of days. And so that really kind of personalizes and drives things home at this point in time, during this really tiny window of days and maybe even up to a week here in January. So this is a significant and pivotal point, a pivotal moment. Keep an eye out for any kind of important events to come up for you, especially if you have a planet or point near that 27, 28 degree point of any sign, really. You could take a look at for any sign, especially if you have something that's maybe in a square or an opposition. You could be particularly challenged by events that are related to this particular period of January. It's been just really kind of phenomenal. Mid-month, January 15th, tomorrow, we're going to have the sun move into Capricorn. Of course, that's a 4-week stay. The sun spends on average 4 weeks in every sign. Capricorn, of course, being the sign of ambition, right? The sign of determination. Also the sign of consequences, what comes after our efforts or lack of efforts, right? So what I want you to be thinking about is, what is your biggest ambition for the coming year? What is it that you really want to get accomplished by December 2020? Because you can use these coming weeks, and especially the upcoming new moon in Capricorn, to really get some momentum underway and to make an initiation that is much more well supported by the forward motion of all the planets in the solar system. And we'll talk more about that in our broadcast for that new moon. And so join me. That's going to be January the 23rd. I'll give you the times for that at the end of the broadcast. But I also kind of want to call out, because right now we have this Venus Uranus thing also going on, and investments that are made in this time frame right now, right around January 15th, could pay off in unexpected ways. And what I mean by that is investments of money, investments of time, investments of anything that you find valuable to you, investments in creative, artistic, spiritual, those sorts of pursuits or activities or endeavors, they could really pay off right around now in ways that you really just kind of don't anticipate. Coming up in this time frame of January 18th through the 23rd, we have a couple of challenging aspects to Uranus. Keeping in mind, he's still kind of slow and sluggish right now. He's just getting back into direct motion. We have Mercury squaring Uranus. We have the sun squaring Uranus over these couple of days. And so expect that. That brings a potential for folks, especially who are Mercury sensitive, Gemini and Virgo, sun and rising signs, folks who maybe are sun sensitive, if you have Leo sun or rising sign. Difficult or unexpected news could arrive. Things could be coming up that affect you personally. These could be events, they could be activities, could be transportation disruptions. Anything Mercury related is potentially up for disruption when Mercury squares Uranus. And then just a few days later on the 23rd, we have the sun square Uranus. This is where we could see either continued fallout from the Mercury square or a personal impact come clear. So just kind of keep an eye out on those days. Especially I would advise you, if you have Gemini sun or rising and Virgo sun or rising, keep an eye on those days especially. And then we have one final kind of major conjunction aspect happening to kind of wrap up our January experience. And that's what on the 26th of January, we have Venus come up and conjoin Neptune. And I like this one as a conjunction, as a standalone cycle. Now, I'm not going to say that I like this one for the chart of the day because I don't have that chart in front of me to refresh me of what it looks like. But Venus conjoining Neptune is special in that Neptune rules the sign of her exaltation. Neptune is the modern ruler for Pisces, right? So we have Venus and her exaltation ruler coming together, joining forces, combining energies. And yes, if you have this aspect in your chart in a challenging way, it can play out in a challenging way for you. However, what I want to kind of highlight for the broader swath of readers is the hidden beauty in this particular aspect. It's such a beautiful and potential filled aspect in terms of the types of spiritual experiences that it can bring to us. Spiritual feelings, joy, ecstasy, just really incredible feelings of love. It does have the potential to bring out secrets, especially secrets related to partnership or love affairs, secrets related to money. So do keep that in mind, especially if you have Venus significant in your chart, or Pisces, excuse me, not Pisces. Where am I going with that? Aquarius. I think this is going to be more affecting folks who have heavy Aquarius energy. Pisces will feel it too, but this is very, very natural. I think, or more natural for a Pisces, and so maybe not quite as significant. Aquarius though, because this conjunction is taking place in Aquarius, and because Neptune brings a little bit more foreign energy to this space when he's in an air sign, right? This is a water planet in an air sign. So it's a little bit different and maybe a little bit less familiar experience for folks who have significant Aquarius energy in their chart, or Aquarius sun or rising sign. Okay, that comes towards the end of the month, like I was saying, January 26th. So do keep an eye on that date. Let me get, actually, and then in my book, it also says 7th. I don't have a degree on that for you, but we can look it up after the broadcast. It would be a sensitive degree for anyone who has a planet or point there, so that may be worth knowing. At month end, this is really the big stuff that I kind of wanted to get to after we got up to date. Mercury moving into Aquarius at month end, Saturn entering Capricorn. So both of these are kind of significant for a couple of different reasons. Mercury moves fast generally, and so his transits as he changes signs maybe aren't normally as significant. This one is significant because Mercury's moving into Aquarius right before he enters the shadow of his retrograde. So this entire Mercury retrograde cycle that will begin February 17th will take place in the sign of Aquarius. Mercury normally only spends about 2.5 weeks in a sign. He's going to be in Aquarius well into April. Okay, so this is particularly noticeable or notable, excuse me, for folks who have Aquarius sun or rising in their chart. Have a look at your chart if that's you. You will particularly feel the effects of the upcoming Mercury retrograde, and you'll feel it in a very personal way. You're going to feel it in a very prolonged way. But even for the rest of us, whichever house we have Aquarius in our natal chart, we're going to be focusing a lot of our attention on things related to that house in these coming months as Mercury prepares for this retrograde cycle. So just consider thinking ahead, like I was mentioning at the start of the broadcast, identifying which house that is for you, and then I'll get you, like I said, the link for the Mercury retrograde survival guide. That way you can kind of get an idea of what activities could benefit you during a Mercury retrograde cycle in that house, and you can kind of plan ahead and decide how do you want to use this, because I guarantee you Mercury retrograde is a lot easier to experience if you move into the space with him and go with his flow. And that is basically to take a second look at things you have going on in whatever house he's retrograde in. Okay, so you can personalize your experience. You'll get a lot more mileage out of Mercury retrograde, and you might even, like I have, come to enjoy Mercury retrograde cycles if you do that. So Saturn entering Capricorn. This is a big one too. So January 31st, Saturn's going to move into Cap. He's going to be there. I do believe we're going to have a brief exception with his retrograde cycle this year. I need to take a look and get you the dates on that, what his retrograde cycle is, and whether and when it would bring him back out of Capricorn into Sagittarius. Normally I have those dates ahead, but I did not write completely this portion, excuse me, of the January overview, and so I don't have those dates in front of me, but I can follow up with them. But this Saturn moving into Capricorn is significant for a couple different reasons. Partly because Saturn is a little bit slower moving planet. It usually takes 2.5 years, if not a little bit longer, to move through one particular sign. And usually, if that's your sun sign or your rising sign, you feel that. Usually it's a period where you're especially challenged in that part of your life. You have to work harder. And progress is slower. Now, Saturn is trying to teach you stuff when he moves through a particular sign, things related to the house that sign occupies in your chart. Sagittarius folks have been getting beat up for the last almost 3 years. Well, now it's Capricorn folks' turn. So just understand that in the days around January 31st, as Saturn prepares to make that sign change, this could trigger an event that gives you a clue as to what his transit through Capricorn is going to be about for you. We are all going to feel this. The main difference for each of us is how intensely and in what way. Folks with Capricorn Sun and Capricorn Rising are going to feel it more significantly, perhaps, than folks with other Sun and Rising signs. So just be aware and know that if you work with the energy, you position yourself to come out in a far better circumstances at the end of it than if you kind of just rail against it and complain and fight your way through. So just be aware. Saturn wants you to work for what he's about to bring you. Okay, so we have Saturn moving into Capricorn at month end. He's going to be there until late January 2023. This is a long transit. Okay, so expect to be tested in that area of your life in the coming 3 years. I've got a few announcements. Watch for news and updates. I know I keep saying that. I've got some updates coming. More news on changes that we're going to make to the Ultimate Astrological Planner for the 2021 year. We made some great new changes for the 2020 Ultimate Astrological Planner. And if you don't have yours yet, it's not too late to get yours. Coming up for 2021, we're going to add additional information, give you some incredible new ways that you can personalize what transits we include in your planner, and incredible new ways that you can identify which are the best days for love, luck, and business throughout the year, whether they're your own personal transits or just the transit to transit aspects that we all experience. So stay tuned for more information about that. Hopefully coming up in the next couple of months as we get that planner ready and prepared for a spring release this year. It's kind of exciting to be seeing some of these changes and developments with the Ultimate Astrological Planner. Let's see. It's not too late, and this is important. It's not too late to do your full moon practice for the full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini. I would encourage you to do it. There's the link. I would also encourage you to do it for your sun sign as well. This is eclipse energy that we're working with. Eclipse energy, you'll recall, is very powerful. It's very intense. It has a long-term effect. Take advantage of it when we have new and full moon eclipses. Definitely when you do your intention setting and your releasing practice, do it both times. Once for your rising sign, once for your sun sign, and take advantage of that added oomph. But there's the link to the practice. We just did it on the 9th. The full moon was on the 10th. We're just a few days into it, so it's still really powerful energy for releasing. And what I want you to focus on when you do that is really focus on leaving behind what needs to be left behind in 2019. I think we can all quite easily identify, and maybe even if we give some thought and time to it, identify even more. We probably have a lot that we've been carrying through this past year. Challenges, difficulties, baggage, all sorts of things that we could stand to just really kind of let go and release. And I want you to think about what those things are and just get ready to release them and let them go so you're not carrying them into your 2020 as well. 2020 is for new and exciting things. We have our new moon in Capricorn coming up very soon. And that's the new moon where you're going to want to make your brand new fresh start for the year. So I want you to kind of be thinking about this stuff, do your releasing, get prepared for the new moon, get prepared for a Mercury retrograde coming sooner than we realize. And then join me, like I was saying, on January the 23rd. So this is for the new moon in Capricorn guided intention setting practice. It's going to be at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 1:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, because it's summer down there, right? I'm getting the hang of this time zone stuff, go figure. And 2:30 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time for those of you who are joining us from the UK. And then, like I was saying at the top of the broadcast, don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Mystic Physick Astrology YouTube channel, because I always upload the broadcast, and that way you'll never miss a notification if you click on that notification bell. And please follow us on Facebook. I'd like to invite you to do that. I always go live every other Monday on the Mystic Physick Astrology Facebook page at 1:30 Mountain Time with your latest Sidereal Insights Astro update. And then you can also join us as well in the Sidereal Insights Astrology community on Facebook, where we do our live new moon and full moon practices every month. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.